This episode of the Golf Unfiltered podcast is brought to you by WorldwideGolfShops.com. Be sure to go out to WorldwideGolfShops.com for all of your equipment, apparel, and accessory needs. They've even got training aids. They've got all the great stuff from all the brands that you hear on our podcast every week. So once again, that is WorldwideGolfShops.com.
You're listening to the Golf Unfiltered podcast, your source for in-depth interviews with the biggest names, brands, and personalities in golf. Our mission? To keep you informed and help you enjoy the game even more. And now, the owner and host of the Golf Unfiltered podcast, Adam Fonseca.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Golf Unfiltered podcast. Your host, as always, Adam from GolfUnfiltered.com. You can follow us all over social media at Golf Unfiltered. Send us an email, golfunfiltered@gmail.com. Hello to our friends who are listening to this episode on the THP mobile app, our friends over there at thehackersparadise.com, of course. And hello to our friends over at Cleveland and Vrska Golf. Folks, today we welcome back a fan favorite of the podcast, and that is Mr. Michael Vrska, now of Callaway Golf. Michael's been on the show many times before, talking about everything from new equipment design to new technologies to custom fitting. And today we talk a little bit more about his new role at Callaway Golf. He's actually been there for about 6 months now. And we talk all about the new MAVRIK line of clubs over at Callaway. And of course, we actually touch a little bit on the distance report as well. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Michael always has a lot of great things to say regarding the game of golf, regarding equipment, regarding technology, and where everything is going. And I think, one of the reasons why we wanted to bring Michael back on is because with the influx in new technologies, with what Callaway is doing with artificial intelligence, they've actually improved on that from last year's Epic Flash line. And it's just truly remarkable what we are doing with technology these days and how that equates to better equipment for you and me. And then I love the fact that we're able to touch on the USGA distance report a little bit because it kind of offers that counterbalance side of everything, So I sit back, relax. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with one of my best friends in the game, Mr. Michael Vrska.
I know you love the game, even though it drives every single one of us crazy. Hi, this is Bill Hobson, and I host the Four Golfers Network podcast, where we celebrate golf in every way imaginable. You'll hear interviews with the biggest names in the sport, travel features, special contests, and we even take your calls. So after you listen to Adam and Golf Unfiltered, give us a try. Subscribe to the Four Golfers Network podcast. That's F-O-R-E on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and everywhere else podcasts are found.
Welcome back, folks. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we are happy to have back Mr. Michael Vrska, now of Callaway Golf, on the show this morning. Michael, how are you?
I'm great, Adam. How about yourself?
Doing pretty well. I think this is the first time we've had you on the show since joining Callaway. And for listeners who are, obviously fans of yours, you've been on the show a few times. Why don't you let us know a little bit about what you're doing at Callaway these days?
Yeah, things are great. Been there 6.5, maybe 7 months now, and things are going well. It's a new role for Callaway, obviously a new role for me, and my title is Director of Custom Fitting and Player Performance. And I think the first half's fairly self-explanatory, is, managing kind of the day-to-day custom fitting stuff, although I have a great team. And really that was running smoothly before I got there, and it's continuing to, I haven't managed to screw that up yet, so that's good. But the bigger picture things that they brought me on for is, what does future look like? What does fitting look like in 2 years, in 5 years? And the player performance aspect, what parts that maybe don't tie to fitting, but, are player performance? Is it, and again, it's nothing I'm committing to now, but is this fitness? Is it psychology? Is it working more closely with coaches? And how do we tie in things that we've learned from, tour fittings even better into everyday fittings? And how do we use data? It's a big project, and 6 or 7 months has not been enough to do anything that is earth-shattering, but I'm very proud of the work I'm doing now, and we have an incredible team at Callaway, so it's going to be a fun ride.
So we had the chance to run into each other at the PGA Merchandise Show in Orlando. Always good to hang out for a little while, and it was the first time you had to go back and wear a suit and tie and not a quarter zip. I mean, how did that feel?
Well, I got the quarter zips in every night, so I still hit my quota. But no, it's good, right? I mean, Callaway is a great brand, and Chip Brewitt, our leadership, and they want to continue to tie in, which they've done an amazing job with the PGA of America, and just to make sure that we're representing our brand and our PGA professionals and the golf industry as a whole. So, I wear shirt and tie Sunday mornings for church, but not normally, not ever through the week, except at the PGA show. And it was a fun, great week. But when I got into some slacks and a pullover at night, I was a little more comfy, but still great overall.
Now, did you have the chance to walk the floor much at the show?
Sadly, no. I was just talking to a couple other industry friends, and I had booked out. I was there Sunday night through basically early Friday morning. So I wasn't at the show at all on Friday, and I had blocked out 2 hours on Thursday and 2 hours on Wednesday, and all 4 of those hours, I blocked them on specifically to walk around, and all 4 of those hours got filled with friends, which was wonderful, and some new people pitching things to Callaway, which some of them were wonderful, some of them not so much. So unfortunately, a little bit, which is good, but not as much as I would have liked.
Did you notice overall, even not having the chance to walk the floor, did you notice a different feel at all to the PGA show this year? I know we've kind of been talking offline a little bit about it, but what were your impressions just even walking to the booth?
Yeah, I never saw the official numbers. It seemed like maybe the traffic goes down a little bit, but I thought the traffic was good. I thought people were engaged. I thought people were generally, there's always a few exceptions, but generally people were optimistic. I know there's a small but woke vocal crowd that people who say, well, I hate going to the PGA show, and I'm in the exact opposite boat. I love going. I love seeing other people. I love talking to people about golf and fitting and learning, their ideas. So I thought the show was very positive. It was definitely positive for Callaway. It was positive for me as a person. It was positive for me in my role that I have now. So again, maybe a little bit smaller numbers wise, but again, I still think it has value, and we could probably spend only about 5 or 6 hours on how to make the show better and how to change it to make it more relevant. And I know that's not what we're doing here, but I'm still all in on the PGA show.
Yeah, it was always good to see, not only the new things that have already been released, and in my opinion, that was really maybe one of the biggest differences, is that everything was kind of already out, and you can go and just kind of get your hands on it for the first time. So there were a couple new product launches, but one of the best stories of the PGA show, of course, is always the Callaway Golf booth, and you guys came out in spades again. I mean, it was just a massive booth. There was a lot of ways that you can interact with both Callaway staff as well as the new products. And one of the new products, of course, is the new MAVRIK line. And, it's an exciting new product. There's a lot of, there's drivers, fairway woods, hybrids, irons, the whole line. And, Michael, I think the biggest story there, of course, is the artificial intelligence improvements in the design. And so, off the top of your head, of course, what's the biggest takeaway from the new design of the MAVRIK? My understanding is, as it's comparing to the Epic Flash, which was really more focused on the face design with AI, is that a little different with the MAVRIK this time through?
So I would say there's 2 main things. One is a much more holistic approach from an AI perspective, and 2 is similar to what we did on Epic Flash, but very different. Is literally each and every face for each and every loft, for each and every driver, fairway wood, hybrid, and iron. Literally every face is different, and that's something that's never been done in golf before, mainly because it's not possible. I mean, the number of iterations and times you'd have to look at different things, it was just not possible by humans. So, and then the holistic approach is different because we can just run iterations where we're looking at, at the different combinations of things. Let's look at the face with the weight here. Let's look with the weight there, but a different aero package to make it faster. Is it moving the weight to enhance our spin profile, or is it moving the weight to increase MOI, or is there a combination of those that maybe a human would never have thought about before that really maximizes performance? So that combination, the things we can do with AI is truly mind-boggling. I mean, obviously, I'm not designing clubs per se right now, but looking back, it makes me feel a little infantile and I'm still very proud of those products I worked on. But AI is such next level that it really is humbling in many cases.
So as somebody and as part of your current role, who deals a lot with custom fitting, and you've been on the show many times to talk about custom fitting, the fact that each of these clubs has a different face, how does that impact what you do?
So a couple ways. One, I know I can go in with confidence that we have great product, right? And that's a good starting point. But then we can look at things a little bit differently. We've done some cool things with women's products this year. We have a lighter version. So we have the standard women's weight and the lighter weight. So we can come in and try to understand, what separates that player who needs that lighter weight or wants that lighter weight compared to others. For men's product, it's understanding, obviously we'll just look at the driver perspective. Do you need a Sub-Zero with maybe a little less spin? Do you need the standard model that's a little bit faster? Or do you need the Max model that's a little bit more forgiving overall, a little bit more draw bias? So from a fitting perspective, we can start gathering that data from the players and to understand who's choosing what. And even from, the tour, we have all three of our drivers played on tour, and it's a great success there early on. Several wins. This a win at the Vic Open here, Victoria Open down in Australia a few hours ago. So it really is taking all of it together, and again, not looking at it, from the same computer of an AI, but again, that holistic approach. And what are we learning from the different swing speeds, attack angles, angle of approach, spin rates, you name it, that they're choosing that. And obviously that's a circular conversation, right? Because our R&D team is constantly testing players, constantly hitting things on the robot. So they've got a good handle on which player this most likely will fit into. And then we find that out, and that goes back in the R&D machine over time. And, we continue to iterate, obviously not on MAVRIK, that's out there, but this will be things that we learn for future generations of products. It's a great cycle and something I'm excited to enhance and be a part of.
And for the consumer who's always looking to improve something with their game whenever they're going to, buy a new driver, Callaway's actually made it pretty easy to help at least start that conversation of fitting. And I'm talking about the online driver selector tool. This is something I've not seen before. And is this newer for Callaway online?
We've had it for before. It was there before I got there, and we've enhanced it. We're making some new enhancements. So it's been there. It's a great way to get started. But I think that's clear that people understand that's a great way to get started, and not necessarily the product they should hit. We want product. We want people to go hit the product. But that's a great start to, if you walk in your fitter and they say, hey, hopefully they're starting with an interview. That should be the first part of every fitting, is to understand the player. And if you've got, if you're an Arcos user or a Game Golf user, one of the other ones, bring that stuff with you. Bring that data to say, hey, this is what I feel, but, this is what I'm seeing in the golf course. I went on the Callaway.com, CallawayGolf.com, and I did the selector, and it's recommending a Max driver. Here's the questions I answered. Here's what I'm thinking. So, again, that's a wonderful starting point. But we want people to hit the product. We want people to get fit. We want people on launch monitors. And we want to ensure they get in the right way. But again, the selector tool is truly a great data-driven way to get started on that.
What's interesting too about it, Michael, is the fact that, like you mentioned, it's just a series of questions that people can go in, they can select their own tendencies. Like, for example, I just did it while we were talking, and you put in your, whether or not you're right-handed, left-handed, your handicap, your driver average distance, the trajectory that you want to hit it or that you currently hit it. But that seems like some pretty common things that people will know about. But when going into a fitting, what about the consumer who really hasn't thought about, well, how high do I hit it? And do I need to bring that down, or do I need to hit it a little bit higher? How are those questions addressed, or how is Callaway hoping to help the player address those questions in a fitting?
Well, I mean, the first start is for them to start to think about that, right? I mean, hopefully, they're playing sufficient golf, and they're playing with different players of different skill levels, maybe, so they can see, my one friend shoots in the low 70s and his ball flight does this. My other friend shoots in the hundreds and his ball flight does that. There's things they can learn. And what's the height of that? What's the shot shape? Where are their misses compared to my misses? So, even that's a good starting point. But, we want people to go in. We want people to feel comfortable. We want people to hit a launch monitor. And one of the things that's so important, I talked about that interview process, is, the fitting process shouldn't be 400 shots. I mean, people just don't have that many swings in them. We want them to come in, we want them to feel comfortable, we want them to get warmed up. And we've got a great tool called Callaway Fits, and it is a little disc that gets inserted in the butt end of the club, and you make a few swings with that, and it actually recommends a shaft or a series of shafts. So basically what it's saying is this might not be the perfect shaft for you, but we're pretty confident this bundle of 5 or 8 shafts, the perfect shaft for you, is in there. It measures your acceleration rate, it measures the way you're loading the shaft, obviously measures club head speed, and a few other things. So that's another great tool, data-driven, that Callaway uses in a fitting, so we can narrow down that shaft selection very quickly. So, if you're going to get fit for a driver, ask for Callaway Fits. It's a great way. And it's not going to say, oh, you have to play this graphite design shaft, or you have to play this Fuji Ventus. What it is going to say is, hey, here's 5 or 6, sometimes up to 8 shafts that fit your profile generally. Now let's hit a couple and get you dialed in. And so we just recently had a little blurb about Mark Leishman. He hit 3 shots with the driver and knew it was good. Now obviously he still took it out on the course and tested it, but it was 3 swings on the range. It had the launch and spin. The changes that he wanted and the trajectory, and away you go. So even amateurs, we want to limit the swings, not because it's not important. It is important, but we want your best swings. That 50th swing is no longer your best swing. That 60th swing definitely is no longer your best swing if you've just been pumping drivers for an hour. So, it's just one of those things that we want to get the data, get you narrowed in as quickly as possible, so we're getting your absolute best swing. So when you do take it to the course, you can be confident that you're ready to roll.
It's funny you mentioned a stronger player. Well, that's underselling him, of course, of Mark Leishman, and he comes in 3 shots, knows that it's an improvement for him. I always wondered about the better player, like the scratch golfer that comes and meets with a custom fitter, and that golfer that comes in and says, you know what, I know what I need. You're not going to tell me anything different. This is what I want. Is that a more difficult player to fit, or would you prefer someone to come in with an open mind and to say, you know what, I know what I'm currently playing. Let me know if I can validate that with this new equipment.
So I guess I'm going to go half pregnant on you. We want players to come in with an open mind, but we do want them to say, give the feedback like, I want to hit the ball lower. Here's why I want to hit the ball lower. Can you help me do that? That's a great comment. That's different than, hey, I need an 8-degree driver. Put me in that. That's a different response. So if it is a ball flight, hey, I'm for whatever reason, my swing lately, I've noticed either I have data or I've clearly noticed I'm hitting the ball higher. I don't want to do that. I think I need to hit the ball lower. That's an okay comment. We can get on the launch monitor and verify that. Wow, your launch angle is 15.2. That's pretty high if somebody your swing speed. We do need to tone that a little bit lower. So, but going with an open mind about, I look at our Max driver. I don't think any tour player would say, hey, I need a Callaway Max driver, but they went with an open mind. They know they have a certain ball flight tendency they want to hit, and that's the driver they get fit into. So going in with goals, going in with what you want the club to do, that's perfectly fine. Just going with an open mind on how the fitter's going to get you there. One of the things I think is a big misnomer is there's only one magical shaft for them. There's certainly buckets of shafts, but obviously there's some similar shafts out there. To say that every shaft fits you, that's a falsehood. That's not true. But there's certainly 3 or 4 or 5 shafts that may fit you, and I'm doing this in air quotes and it's on the radio so you can't see it perfect. meaning they have the right tip profile. They're the similar weight, from a torque perspective. So to go in there and find the one that's right for you, again, that's what we're trying to do, that narrowing concept. But so again, going with goals, that's wonderful. Hey, I want to do this. I want the ball to do that. Then let a truly trained fitter find the club that will help that.
For players that come in with that idea or the goal in mind, how often is that goal normally distance?
Well, so I think you need to look at what club you're fitting. For a driver, it should always be distance. I mean, a driver is a maximum distance club. That's why you're using it. Now, obviously, there has to be a dispersion factor in it for sure. But, I think one of the issues is when people go get irons and that's the only thing they want, or they start selecting, well, that iron, that 7-iron I hit went 168 and that 7-iron I hit went 166. So I want the 168 version. I think that's where you can get in some trouble for sure. Irons are certainly are distant clubs, but it's more about hitting a distance. I want my 7-iron to repeat a certain distance over and over and over again. I want this club to have my 7-iron have a much tighter dispersion than my driver. Mm-hmm. If you're a better player, you might want to be able to curve it a little bit depending on your skill level. So when you're going in, I've never heard anyone say, "Hey, I didn't need new sand wedge. I'm going to go get the one that hits it farthest." So for some reason, people have accepted that when they go get a wedge fitting. But even in irons, they tend to go to the one that always goes the longest, and that at times can be right, but mm-hmm. it shouldn't be the norm for people going to give it. But from drivers, yeah, we want to maximize distance. Now, again, that doesn't mean if one driver goes 2 yards longer than another, that's the right one for you. Now, mm-hmm. one that goes 20 yards longer, probably.
Well, and that's kind of the segue into something that obviously we would be remiss not to talk about, at least at the time of this recording, is the USGA's distance report that was released not too long ago. And unlike our the famous Dustin Johnson, you and I have actually read the report, and there's a lot that goes into all the comments and the conclusions, and really not many recommendations from that report. But really, Michael, the whole thing that boils down, if I understand correctly, is you need to have a goal in mind when you go into a fitting. And if it is more distance with the driver, for example, then fine. But to a comment that you just mentioned about, okay, well, am I hitting it 2 to 5 yards further, or am I hitting it 20 yards further without compromising control? That's got to be top of mind for any player that comes in, as opposed to just, you know what, I want to hit this thing as far as I can.
Yeah, unquestionably, and that dispersion is, there's ways to fix it, right? Do you need a head that's a little more forgiving? Can we change put you in a draw setting if slices, are more issues? And one of the things that I think is interesting is, with some of the iron things out there, people are the loft jacking crowd out there. No one, if you put you in a 12-degree driver because you hit it farther compared to your buddy who's at 8-degree, you didn't say, well, you're loft jacking your driver. You just get fit.
Right.
So lots of things go into that. And, from a USJ perspective, they've got a tough task. I'm not speaking for Callaway with this next sentence. I'm speaking purely for myself. Sure. I am completely against bifurcation. Mm-hmm. I understand that people see tour pros hitting at 7 miles and they have a problem with that. I struggle with that. I look at somebody like LeBron James, obviously a different sport, but I want to see an amazing athlete do amazing things that people couldn't do 20 years ago. I want to see an athlete do amazing things that literally blow my mind. That's why I pay money to go watch him on TV or watch him in real life, mm-hmm. Pay money in real life or watch him on TV. It's no different than golfers. I want to see Xander Schauffele do things with a golf ball that I can't do. I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. So, from that perspective, again, the USJ has a tough task because there does become a point where skill can be diminished, but certainly from an amateur perspective, the game's not too easy. People don't hit it too far. Again, from a fitting perspective, it's my job to maximize that and make it easier. And it's our R&D teams to make the best product possible within the rules of golf, which we always strive to do. And the USGA has their job, so it's a tough little battle. And I've had many go-ins with them over the years, and there's lots of amazing, good people at the USJ. And the one thing that I think everybody needs to realize is they love the game of golf. They truly do, and they're passionate about it. So. The report's long. Yeah, there's a ton of data, which is really fun. And yeah, there's not a lot of recommendations, which is interesting, right? They want to continue to study. They recognize that, at least my reading of it, they recognize this is a complicated subject with many different avenues. Is it agronomy? Is it clubs? Is it people? So there's a lot of ways to go, and they'll continue to study. And I hope and pray they make the right decision, whatever that is, when the time comes.
Well, and the fact that they are continuing the study, I believe they said they were going to release another one. Well, clearly it's an annual report, but they wanted to wait another 12 months before they we're getting another update basically from them. And sticking with the perspective, Michael, of not being a representative from a brand, but just being a golfer who loves the game. Was your takeaway that maybe they wanted to put this out there to see what the reaction would be to help them with the next report, or how did you interpret that?
Well, I obviously they announced the study years ago, and I think again this is a lot of speculation here, but clearly they got to the point where they feel like they've got all or virtually all the data they reasonably can at this point. It's time to put that out there and getting a reaction from OEMs, from the general public, from tour pros who actually read the report, however few that may be. So yeah, there's certainly some politics or marketing or whatever term you want to use involved with the report, but I don't think anyone who read it can't think that the USGA hasn't done their job from a research perspective, that they haven't done their job from looking at the data. You for one put up some interesting charts that weren't in there just by looking at the data differently. So there's always different ways to slice it, if you will, So that's going to happen, but I think they've done a wonderful job of getting the data, putting it out there, getting the discussion going based on numbers. Because before the discussion was, I saw Rory hit it 390 yards on this hole. Mm-hmm. I saw Tiger do this. Well, back in the day, Jack Nicklaus did this, and back in the day, Arnold did this. But those are all anecdotal, one-off type numbers, and the USGA's done a wonderful job of aggregating it.
Well, I think that makes sense. I mean, obviously, from a golfer standpoint, the USGA has a lot of stakeholders, not only golfers, but also the brands that sell products to those golfers. And then I guess putting your Callaway hat back on, I mean, that's not much different than brands themselves. I'm sure Callaway has a lot of different stakeholders, golfer types, of course, and the like, that they need to kind of find that right balance. I mean, I'd imagine that's a pretty difficult thing to do for a large brand.
Yeah, I mean, Chip Brewer, as the CEO, does amazing things and has with the company, and I consider him a friend on top of that. But yeah, I mean, if you look at Callaway, obviously we have this true shareholders, people who own stock in the company. We have a board of directors. We have an incredible management team, hundreds and hundreds of employees, people who buy the product. So when you get that all together, Callaway needs to do the right thing for all those people, but Callaway is also a leader of golf, and not to put words in Chip's mind, but I know he takes that very seriously. As one of the major brands that, we are a critical part of golf, and believe in the USGA, and we put a statement out that we support them, and we will work with them in whatever way possible to make this the right decision. We will put our input in, but ultimately the USGA is the governing body, and they're going to choose. But Callaway wants to be a partner and will be, and has worked with them in the past. I know our R&D team works with them to make sure our product's conforming virtually every day, and that's not going to change. So this great game of golf is amazing, with so many people and so many people who care and so many people who are passionate. And when that happens, I don't want to say tempers get flared, but people get dug in on things, and this distance debate over the next few years is going to be one of them.
Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, and it's certainly going to be top of mind of everyone like yourself, me, and others who love the game so much, and especially the equipment side of it. And Michael, once again, listeners, we're talking to Michael Vrska of Callaway Golf. Michael, I know that you probably can't officially comment on what I'm about to bring up next, but clearly we are seeing some players who may be outside of an equipment contract trying Callaway MAVRIK, and one very notable individual, Brooks Koepka, was seen on social making a switch mid-tournament, no less. I'd imagine that a mid-tournament switch from one driver brand to a next is pretty rare. I mean, have you seen anything like that before?
Nothing comes to mind. I mean, golf's been going on for a long time, so I'm sure it has happened. And I will comment on Brooks' meeting that I saw the picture that everybody else saw. I sent a note to a good friend of mine who runs our tour, and obviously our tour operations, and obviously he was aware of it beforehand. But that's great, right? I mean, again, not comment Brooks specifically, other than the generality that, he's been very vocal about not having equipment deals. And, he's using our driver right now, and time will tell what that means. But, we're very proud. We have with numerous people on numerous tours using MAVRIK, using Odyssey, using Toulon, that aren't on our staff. And obviously a majority of them do. That's part of the game, is OEMs pay players. But Callaway has a very strong contingent of people using MAVRIK drivers and fairway woods and Odyssey putters that we don't pay, which is truly wonderful. Obviously, you're winning that game purely on merit. And we're proud of that. We're proud of, quite frankly, our fitting team at the ECPC works with a lot of these players when they happen to come through to get players into those clubs, and our fitters on tour, who we learn a lot from, who are out there working every day getting players in the right clubs. And that's great, because when I hear those things and get some of the feedback on how we got those players, believe it, and I mean this, that some of that stuff is getting into how we are going to fit average golfers in the future. So, one of the things we're really doing is trying to take this big, awesome machine of Callaway that, sometimes, the tour's over here and this guy's doing that and this guy's doing that. It's sometimes tough to get them all together, but from a fitting perspective, we're really wrapping our arms around each other to take those lessons from a tour player who maybe wasn't our staff, that we switched into our driver. And how did that happen? And what did we learn from that fitting experience? And how does that tie into a 16 handicapper who, needs MAVRIK Max? So it's really cool to see. And it's great for Callaway. And in a personal perspective, I think it helps me in my job, which also will ultimately help, golfers out there, which is also fun for me.
Once again, folks, that's Mr. Michael Vrska from Callaway Golf. And Michael, thanks again for coming on the show. Last question for you. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about MAVRIK. We've talked a lot about how fitting is being impacted by artificial intelligence. What's the one thing that you're most excited about? One or two things that you're most excited about with the new MAVRIK club family?
I think the drivers are amazing, and what we've done to understand about spin rate across the face, and I don't think this is going to be super sexy out there because it's a little more confusing, but I'll take just a minute. What we've done to understand about and how to get the spin rate consistent across the face, so you don't have it when you're hitting a little high on the face, you lose 1,000 RPMs, you hit a little low on the face, you hit it 1,200. That's what we call spin robustness, is really amazing things, and it ties how MOI comes together, it ties how the face comes together. It ties in where the weights are placed. So it's really cool. In the commercials, we talk about, a different kind of forgiveness. And it's not just, hey, let's measure MOI and call it forgiving. That's certainly part of it. But how, again, from an AI perspective, we've been able to look at things more holistically across multiple parameters to truly affect performance is amazing, period. And again, coming from somebody who's designed clubs, thinking, wow, we used to look at 2 or 3 things and be real proud of ourselves. AI can virtually look at everything, and it really has with MAVRIK, and it's amazing how that's going to help golfers and the consistency they're going to see out there.
Folks, once again, Michael Vrska of Callaway Golf. Be sure to go out to CallawayGolf.com, take a look at everything new with the MAVRIK line of clubs, drivers, fairway woods, hybrids, irons, and of course they got a lot of other great stuff there too that you want to check out. So Michael, it's always a blast to have you on. We'll do it again very soon.
I look forward to it, Adam, always. Thank you, my friend.